6:30, right? Good day, good day. How's everybody doing? Working on my audio. So we're kind of doing it the old-fashioned way. Let me jump in here. Join the space. Force. Good evening.
What's up, Banana? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Just so you know, I'm in the car still. I had a pretty long day at work, so
Okay.
if I'm cutting in and out, that's why. But or if you hear background noise.
Okay. That's all good.
You got any updates for me? I haven't been on Twitter much today either. So anything going on?
Well, we did have somebody. Hey, Stylist. Stylist is in the chat. She and I talked this morning. We're talking business. Let's see. We did have somebody in Telegram that was asking for some moon math. We'll see if he jumps in. See if I can spot him. I don't know if you caught that conversation, but I don't see him in here. Maybe he'll jump in. But I told him we could jump into some moon math on look into pTGC.com if he wanted to whenever he jumps in.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. If he hops in here, we'll maybe call him up and plug in some numbers that maybe he thinks PulseChain or the X multiplier we'll get from our connected liquidity and play with some numbers, 10x on pTGC and stuff like that. Some of the numbers we've done in the past. And if he's never done it before, I think it definitely would like it. So
yeah, and there's probably some people that are new that perhaps have never seen that moon math either. And I wanted to say that, guys, my audio on YouTube was wrecked because I did some adjustments to my computer last week. And so, but I got the Spaces audio uploaded to my YouTube. If that's where you go to listen to the Spaces, however you do it, there's probably some people that do like myself. I'm downloading the Spaces from my own channel so I can listen to it on my phone while I'm out and about. And it was good. A gentleman named Tangent was on there. And so it's worth the listen. And it's on my channel right now. It's like 3+ hours, just over 3 hours. So apologize that I didn't upload right away, but we got it up there.
Yeah, that was a good space this last Saturday.
Yeah, I missed most of it because I was working through tech issues. It was awful, but we made it. We just kind of faked it a little bit, if you know what I mean. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it felt like the conversation was cooking, and next thing I know, we were there for 3 hours.
I know it blew by so fast. I couldn't believe it was over 3 hours. I was shocked.
Yeah,
but
kind of long.
It was nice. Yeah, it has happened in the past. We've gone that long, but there was a nice little pump. Like, I think, did it start yesterday and it overflowed to today? And it was a nice little, green candle event.
Yeah, nice to see a little bit of green on the RH tickers and some of the pump tires tokens. For our ecosystem, it kind of really started to increase our liquidity web a little bit, by not a lot, right? We're only talking 10-20%, but it increased the liquidity web, so our liquidity increased by 10-20%. And then we had some natural arbitrage volume that came from some of our pairs having some nice moves yesterday, which, going back to the utility of pTGC and UFO, we got to generate a little bit of revenue off of that and keep doing our thing. It's just, cool to see the machine, running at such low levels of price on everything on chain.
Yeah. Yeah, we're running at PTGC is at $68,000 in volume right now. And UFO is 41,000, a little bit higher than it was when I checked it this morning. And it was down from yesterday, if I remember right. It was, we had some decent volume yesterday.
Yesterday they were both over, or I think UFO was right under 100,000, and then pTGC was right over. I was kind of looking at a lot of it. I really think yesterday 90% of the volume was from the market makers. I didn't see any human interaction going through them.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yesterday most had a really good move. So our liquidity with most was generating us some good revenue yesterday. And then the PDI ecosystem's been pushing up hard for the last week. So then they went a little bit red yesterday, which is nothing against them. That's just what happens, right? And we generated revenue off of that. Those went down, fixed arbitrage bots had to fix those pools against the most pools. And that's literally what the system is designed to do, is the market just does what the market does. And we get to generate revenue off of it and then use that revenue to increase the foundation of our ecosystem and get our holders some APY.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and we were all celebrating a little bit of green candles, in the last 24 hours or so. But, what could be coming with, marketing campaigns or whatever Richard Hart has planned for this chain, I think is gonna make those, these green candle days pale in comparison. I hope. I just think something's like happening. I don't think he's going to let this chain just continue to coast sideways. I'm sure he has some kind of plan, especially with news of, tens of billions of dollars of Bitcoin being moved around. I'm not saying it's his. I don't know that it has been identified as his, but it just seems like to me that things can pop off at any time. It could be this fall. I'm not saying it's going to be anytime super soon, but.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you all?
We're doing
all right. Well, last Saturday I was in the conversation, but I'm just listening. But there was something that went through my head, and I've been thinking about it over the weekend. And you had mentioned that, when we thought if the market was at a top and the Dow was generating a lot of PLS, could the Dow sell that PLS into, say, a stable coin, and then to use that for future buy and burns if the market was to, contract? Could the Dow hold stable coins?
Well, 100%. The wallet we use for a treasury wallet, that's not the smart contract, can hold any token, right? So that is part of the plan, is once we get higher in the market to take portions of the PLS from the smart contract and swap them over for stables to create a reserve to buy back the pTGC assets at the next bear market to help with the spark to get us moving back up against the market again next bull run, helping ensure a multi-cycle token.
I was thinking that was in the plans, but I wanted to bring that up. I didn't know if the Dow was able to hold. You're saying the smart contract can, but the Dow can't hold stablecoins?
Yeah, so we have a wallet that we've been using as like a DAO management wallet, and that wallet can change over time and stuff like that. It's where we've been storing some of the PLS and stuff like that, and it's public to our community. And that's not the smart contract, right? So those are two different entities. The smart contract is also what holds the PLS until the proposal becomes approved. And then once the proposal becomes approved, if we feel like it's not a strategic point to use those funds, we'll store it in the DAO management wallet until a more strategic point comes. Like the best example is a few months ago when we saw the market kind of retracting, we actually were holding on to a lot of the PLS, and we were able to buy and burn pTGC at way lower prices than if we were to use that PLS at all-time highs of PLS versus pTGC ratio. So we could see the market was pulling back, and we saw when the market pulls back, that usually means value leaves risk on assets, and we fall under that category. And we were actually able to kind of conserve those funds and then buy and burn PTGC at like an 80% discount of PTGC to PLS terms.
Okay. Cool.
So we definitely plan on doing that same thing on that was like a micro cycle. There's also the big cycle, the 4-year cycle. In that instance, we'll probably even rotate some of those funds, not all of them, because you never know which way the market will go, but definitely hold some of those funds in stables to really take advantage of the discount on PTGC and get those tokens off the market next.
And that would have to be a proposal in the DAO to use PLS to buy stable for future purchases, something like that.
Correct. Yeah. So usually how we word it is buy and burns at strategic times, because there is definitely better times to do buy and burns than others. At all-time highs of P to PLS isn't always the best time unless we're trying to just like keep the momentum going. But at lower terms of ratio of PLS to PTGC, we're getting a lot more PTGC per PLS. So we can actually use the DAO at strategic points to help the chart as best as. And that's one thing that's nice about the DAO is it gives us the flexibility to do the buy and burns or the LP ads at strategic points. Like even for an example, we've been able to add LPs at discounted prices of tokens instead of just whenever the smart contract functions, where we have those aspects as well, right? The automated functions within the 5%. There's the automated buy and burn, and there's the automated LP ad. It doesn't care what price PTGC is. It doesn't care what price PLS is and PTGC is to add that LP. That happens automatically. But then with the DAO, we can actually kind of use a little bit of market analysis to do it at solid points in time as well. Or depending on where we are in the cycle, where we think. Obviously, no one really knows the exact point. But for an example, when, let's say, PLS starts breaking all-time highs, even though that could be very, very far from where the new all-time high of PLS is, it does make sense to start even creating a little bit of stablecoin LPs and stuff like that. Very small in comparison to where our LPs could be at that time. For an example, if PLS breaks all-time highs, that will be more than a 10x from here. Well, right now, between PTGC and UFO, I think we probably have around 12 million in liquidity. That would put us at roughly 120, most likely even more, $150 million of liquidity. So we do need to start building up that liquidity pool with stables at some point, so we can kind of look at where we are in the market to determine what those good points are. We do plan on also taking some of the more riskier LPs out or part of those LPs out, and also rotating those to stable coins near the top as well, helping hedge us against the downtrend, but also giving us a backboard that's near the top because the stable coin won't go down with the rest of the market, as far as an arbitrage opportunity for bots to generate revenue for the ecosystem throughout the whole bear market as well.
That's what I was wondering, because if you paired with stable coins, it's not going to give you big X's. You can't get that. But it is something for arbitrage bots to play in. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so that's why we don't really have much of that right now, is because if we were to bond heavily with them at the bottom, we're technically anchoring us to the bottom. But if we were to do it near a top or closer to a top, we are actually putting that anchorage point at the top. So it will actually help hold us up there. It can't hedge us against an extreme bear market, right? Like, everyone needs to understand that the bear market will come. When value leaves risk on assets, it leaves, But there is things that we can do in our ecosystem to help hedge ourselves against the downtrend, to hopefully experience less of a downtrend than the rest of the market, right? That's kind of the goal. Is if Pulse goes down 90%, like, hey, let's try to maybe only go down 50% or 60%. I'm just shooting out numbers there. But there is things mechanically that we can do to hedge ourselves against the bear market and generate revenue off of that hedging. I think also our buy and burns will be, our automated buy and burn within pTGC, our automated buy and burn within UFO. I also think we'll still be doing buy and burns in LPS and stuff like that throughout the bear market too. I think all those things will help hedge us against the bear market as well, possibly making it to where we land, maybe not as low as people might think, but we'll see, right? I am very excited, not only for this bull market, but I'm also very excited for next bear market to see how this system can actually fight or sustain against the bear market, because if you look at where we are on PulseChain right now, it's pretty much a bear market. It's hitting highs and it's taken 90% dips. 90% dips are technically what happens in bear markets too, maybe a little bit more. So we can actually kind of see how the system can absorb some of that. Even though PulseChain's been hitting lower lows, we've been hitting higher lows, kind of giving us that uptrend. And if we can keep sustaining those kind of moves and sustainability over time, I definitely think that will bring a lot of security to the long-term holders of pTGC and bigger investors that come later as well.
Sure. Thanks for pointing that out. I like Banana was saying, I'm excited for the volume coming back, because I have a decent amount of my portfolio in UFO and paired with PLS or PLSX or Hex, and there were days 6 months ago, 5 months ago, when we were getting a million pulse a day in volume. I was hitting that, and now I'm hitting 20, 30, 40,000. So it's nice to see the volume starting to pick up again. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I've been kind of talking about that a lot lately. Definitely the volume with pTGC and UFO has bogged down a little bit. And it's due to a few things that I can tell. Definitely the main one is you have to realize every asset that we're connected to has gone down 80%, Pulse, PulseX, Hex, Inc., Most, Pump, Trump, PDI, Teddy, you can name it. We're bonded. We're pretty much an index of everything that's a blue chip on chain, and all those things are on 90% dips right now. So that means our liquidity within our web is down 90%. So that means market makers, when they fix these pools, they actually have to move 90% less value, right? So even with just the increase of the tokens that we're bonded to increasing, let's say 10x from here, well, that's automatically going to 10x the liquidity, which then 10x's the amount of value that market makers need to move, which then 10x's the volume. But then naturally what you see is when prices start moving up, this means that value is flowing into the chain, which means money is flowing into the chain, which then means movement is happening, activity is happening, and human interaction is happening. So then you can actually see momentum flowing throughout the chain, which naturally means volume should pick up. Right now on PulseChain, volume is at all-time lows. So I'm in the same boat. I'm excited to see PulseChain start moving up in price and all the assets within our web. That's the thing is, I look at everything that we're connected to as part of our team, and we're hopefully all going to win and win together. And these assets that are the blue chips on change hopefully are going to create a new standard here on PulseChain. And when those all win and we, our own product market fit does its thing, people value flowing into PulseChain and finding its way to pTGC and UFO, but then also value flowing into PulseChain and the value that doesn't find its way to pTGC and UFO. Let's say a part of it finds its way to Most. Let's say a part of it finds its way to Hex. Well, every time a portion of value finds its way to anything that's connected to us, they're also increasing the price of our assets, right? And all this is going to compound, and in the past it's compounded, and I think that volume will increase when all those things start to happen. And I do think this next run should be better than the last, right? So those numbers that you're kind of just talking about, I'm hoping we go far past those numbers. And hopefully after this bull market, and then when we go into the next bear, hopefully all these numbers don't land as low as they did in this last, few months. So we can sustain some of the higher volume amounts, making it so throughout the whole next bear market, we're buying and burning and a ton of pTGC, buying and burning a ton of UFO, and the machine's cooking for, the 3 years of waiting around. I'd like to see it to where we're not waiting around. Our machine's just running every single day, all night, just letting the market go up and down and us doing our thing.
So I wanted to make an observation, Zen, and I want to bounce it off of you. So you're familiar with the experiment of if pTGC and UFO both have $10 million in volume every day for a year, that we could effectively buy and burn $128 million worth of pTGC. And we know what that would do to the price, right? It would be like if we bought and burned $128 million worth of pTGC right now, it'd send the price, not technically, but in theory, according to the calculator, to like 10, 20, 30 cents, something like that. And we probably would never execute on an experiment like that. But to me,
we have to keep in mind when volume is if volume gets to those levels, obviously PulseChain will be up, most likely. PulseX will be up, Hex will be up, Most will be up, Pump will be up. Everything we're connected will be up, and then our assets will be up as well. So technically, our token could already be at those prices when we're cooking those volume levels, right? And that value generation levels. I could promise you pretty much that prices of our assets and the connected assets would not be at these levels with volume levels at that height. But that doesn't mean we're not generating that type of value. That's what's super important, is when we're at those higher levels, the value generation of the pTGC machine could be at crazy numbers. And that was what you were just explaining, the 128 million.
Right. And it might not even be sustained for a year. But the idea is, though, Zen, that sure, we could send the price, and it was 50 cents. If I remember right, it was like 49 cents. So the idea is, though, even if we did not burn $128 million worth of pTGC tokens, there still effectively would be that much economic energy in the system to bring pTGC's price to about probably the same level. Does that make sense? We just need the volume. That's the only missing ingredient
to bring price to those levels. Yeah, there's a few ingredients that kind of get us there. We have the adoption and price appreciation of our own tickers, right? pTGC and UFO. So humans buy those assets. Well, I'm going through a dead spot, so let me get through it.
Okay, we'll just wait for you.
So we have just natural human. I should be out now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly now, yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is what pretty much most 99% of tokens only depend on. This is like a token on ETH. Like, it's the human interaction. That's the only way they're moving up, because they're built on an asset that's already done 1,000x pretty much. Yeah, they might get a 10x multiplier from ETH, and maybe this bull run. Like, I would love to see ETH at $26,000 ETH, but
yeah.
Who knows? I would love to see that. But so we have the human interaction, and I think just like $5 million into pTGC, maybe $5 million into UFO can make us do a 10x from here. Just with value flowing into us. That doesn't even include the value of like our automated functions buying and burning, and the DAO and UFO buying and burning, etc. So we have people interacting with ours, and then we have the assets we're connected to, which pretty much we're connected to everything that's decent on chain. So even when value flows into this chain, even if they don't buy pTGC and UFO, let's say they're buying Most or Pump or PDI or Teddy, like really it don't matter. We pretty much have LPs with all of it. In a way, they're going to be increasing the price of pTGC. they're going to be increasing the price of UFO if we have liquidity pairs with those assets.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then obviously we're heavily paired to Hex, PulseX, Inc., Pulse as well. So if any value flows into the chain, pretty much they can take their pickings. If they don't make their way to pTGC and UFO and they make their way to any of those other tickers, they're also increasing pTGC's assets by buying any of those tickers. Also, if they just hold the gas token, if they just hold Pulse, they're also increasing the price of pTGC by holding just Pulse. And then from all that going on, you know, that's volume, that's movement, that's up and down, that's price is shifting. We're going to be generating revenue off of all that shifting from today for as long as PulseChain exists. And that's going to be what's buying and burning and increasing the underlying value of pTGC over time automatically. You know, right now it's a little bit slower because volume's at all-time lows and prices are pretty much at all-time lows. But very quickly, we can get out of these low levels and start increasing the prices of not only our own asset, but the assets we're connected to, and also getting our volume away from these all-time low levels and, you know, getting it a little bit higher. And the machine can start kicking very, very quickly, right? We saw that. We saw that around this time last year. I was actually thinking about that today. It was around this time last year when PLS finally started going back up. And as soon as PLS started going back up, that meant money was moving into the chain, or it's stable sitting on the side. But either way, right, that means value is flowing into PLS. And most of the time, a portion of that value doesn't just stay in PLS. It makes its way to pTGC or UFO. It makes its way to most. It makes its way to Pump, PDI. It don't matter. Just as long as it makes its way to something that we are connected to in our liquidity web, it's going to increase the value of the pTGC and UFO asset. But then also, if it puts the assets that we're connected to past thresholds, we're going to generate revenue off of that threshold passing, and we're going to use that value generation to increase our price mechanically. And this is what we've seen in the past. We've actually witnessed it like 4 times now. Every time the value flows into PLS.
You there, Zen? We'll just wait for him to come back. He's going to have to rewind. YouTube, can you guys hear Zen? Let me know if you can hear Zen. Let me see if he's muted. He's muted. Okay, so commercial break, guys. It helps if we put little emojis in. Oh. Well, of course you can't hear him. I'm thinking, yes, we had. Ah, man, what do I say? Yeah, of course. The audio is coming from my phone to the mic, so I don't know what we're gonna do here. He might start a new space. I'm just gonna click all good. It looks like the space ended. Bums. Okay, thanks for the feedback, guys. I was gonna say when we're on the spaces is that you got to use the little emojis. It helps the algorithm to draw more people into the space. Yeah, totally got wrecked. Let me go make sure that, yep. We had 65 people in there. Oh, man. Okay, he's going to recreate the space, and we'll just jump back in. Parrish, it's time to sell, guys. Bull run's over. That was it. He's going to put it on his Twitter, so I got to go to his Twitter. Just bear with me a minute. Hold on. I got to do a search. Profile. No, I want to go to search. PulseTGC. There we go. All right, here he already got it going. That's a good sound. Bear sign. Time to sell.
Hey, Banana, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Do you know what happened?
Yeah, when I pull up to my house, my phone connects to my Wi-Fi and then drop the space.
Of course. It's all right. It's all right. Did you want to finish what you were saying? You were just going into something, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah, I was kind of just talking about how when value starts flowing back into risk on assets, its value is going to make its way to ETH, and then a portion of that value will make its way to blockchains like Pulse, more speculative plays, and even it makes its way to more speculative plays on ETH, like ETH meme tokens or alt tokens, etc. But let's say whatever value makes its way to PulseChain, if that's people who are already here over the bridge just sitting in stables, because there is a lot of people actually just sitting in stables over here, more than I think people realize. And then, there's chances of Richard's funds coming over or new users, people chasing green candles, right? There was tons of value that flew into Hex when those green candles started. But when value starts flowing into PulseChain, most of that value doesn't actually sit in PLS. A good portion of that value makes its way to alt tokens on the chain that people believe has the ability to have more sustainability or more price appreciation or built-in APY or buy and burn mechanisms, or some of it just goes to full-blown degenerate gambling, meme tokens that come out for, it goes to plenty of different areas, right? And really how we have the system set up is, for the most part, wherever that value flows, for one, we generate revenue off of these assets moving up and down for the most part, the blue chips. So even if when value flows in, if it only sits in PLS, this increases our price. If it works its way to most, it increases our price. If it makes its way to PDI, it increases our price. If it makes its way to the Trophy ecosystem, it increases our price. And it doesn't just increase our price. When the value flows into these assets, it pushes the assets past our thresholds. So then once it pushes them past our thresholds, we generate revenue off of this, right? So, and we've witnessed this like 4 times now with value flowing into PulseChain. So it's not a real new story. And this has already happened on other blockchains for many cycles now. So I don't see this acting any differently. But the sweet thing for pTGC, and why I see this happening again as is even if the event takes place, which I don't think, because every time this happens, every time value flows into PulseChain, I do personally believe people will find product market fit in the pTGC and UFO ecosystem. So I do think we will get additional X's from human interaction with our contracts, right? But even if humans do decide to not interact with our contracts, we have the system set up with, as long as the value is going to things that we're connected to, we still get price appreciation and value generation off of these movements, right? For an example, this is the big one. When, or if, not when, if Richard moves value over to PulseChain, or, big entities associated to help support this blockchain, do I think he's buying pTGC and UFO? Probably not, right? He's most likely buying his assets. But the thing is when he buys his assets, he will be creating arbitrage opportunities that we are connected to. So we will generate revenue off of the value flowing into his assets, and we will get price appreciation from value flowing into his assets, because we are directly connected to his assets via liquidity, because they are part of our index. So even when Richard, or if Richard, or if some entity does bring in value to help this chain, or however adoption happens, even if none of the value makes its way to some of these more speculative alt tokens like pTGC, UFO, MOS, PDI, etc., even if it just finds its way only to RH tickers, we still succeed off of that success. And value generation, etc., like the mechanisms kick in. And we've kind of gotten small glimpses of this happening with just like 10x's or 5x's on PulseChain. But could you imagine this happening in any magnitude greater than a 5x? I've ran calculations, and the calculations that I've ran is like our system will generate very, very nice amounts of value to where it can actually just kind of run on itself, as long as not one or a group of holders just run away with all the capital. Obviously, at that point, this is any asset. This isn't just pTGC and UFO. If a bunch of holders just decide to leave, your market cap gets very low and liquidity thins out. But what that looks like to me is just a new floor to build off of, a new place to grow the ecosystem off of. And this is this isn't just our asset. This is any asset out there, right? There's always the possibility of holders leaving. But I do think our system's even strong enough to withstand any of those events, right? Like there hasn't been a lack of sellers to pTGC. It's just the system, the code is so strong, it's been able to absorb a lot of that pressure. And I do think a lot of that pressure isn't there as much as it used to, because we've actually absorbed so much of it already. And now people even understand the system more than ever. And not only understand it, they've been able to witness it, which also builds a form of trust, right? The fact that everything we've been saying is going to happen or will happen with this code has been true, right? It's been operating as designed. And then that does mean something over time, right? Right now we're at like 2 years, but could you imagine at 5 years if the system just kept doing what it's doing? There would be even more trust built. And it's not trust with me or trust with Banana, but trust in the code that's been written.
Yep. Well, I see that Extra is in the chat. And I don't want to interrupt. If anybody has any comments about that, jump in. Otherwise, I want to do some moon math real quick.
Yeah, guys. If anyone wants to come up or ask any questions or just add anything about PulseChain in general, this doesn't have to be just pTGC and UFO. Definitely would love some conversations about just PulseChain and where we're at, and Richard, and so on and so forth. You will have to request to come up though, because I restarted the space due to the internet issue. But yeah, raise your hand and we'll bring you up.
Also, a reminder to use the emojis, guys, and I got to use the emoji myself. So there's my emoji to help the algorithm. All right, let's do some moon math until somebody raises their hand, perhaps to make some input. How many? What's that?
Here, I'm bringing some people up real quick.
Okay, let's do that first.
Did you have anything to add to that? I know I dropped you off.
Not earlier, no, but when you do moon math, I'm like you to speculate on ETH. I'm thinking we're going to 15 to 20 by the time the market is done. But the market tops out $15,000 to $20,000 on ETH. That's my speculation. I don't know if anyone else has any speculation on that.
Do you have an idea how many X's that would imply for Pulse? A $20,000 ETH.
No idea.
Okay,
I don't know how to calculate that.
Okay.
Yeah. So with Pulse, it's not like a one-to-one thing, because Pulse does have a lot of liquidity with stable coins, right? You have to look at pretty much, you could look at the farm and see how much value is in those V1 pairs, and that really determines the price of PLS. So we do get some Hart's Law effect from our bondedness with ETH, which, like I think you used the number of like, I think a 7x could come this cycle, right? If ETH did a 7x, definitely we would get some Hart's Law effect out of that. But what I think is the most important thing about that 7x that you're talking about is the amount of value that has to flow into risk on assets to make ETH do a 7x is a ton. And a good portion of that value that flows in to make ETH to do a 7x will make its way to riskier assets like alts on ETH, and then also alt blockchains as well, which would possibly equal capital flow into PulseChain as well, as they see opportunity, right?
Hey guys,
of course, I was thinking about the treasury. If they hold back and not move a lot of the money over, assumption, I'm making assumption they will, if they hold back and let the ETH just grow, that will be the big catalyst for Pulse, at least one of them, to move the chain.
Yeah, I think Banana, if you want to throw Pampy on your YouTube,
yeah,
we can kind of see what Richard's treasury or sacrifice wallet, what that's sitting at like did you say 15K ETH?
Yeah, 15 to 20. So let's just do 15. Yeah.
What's up, Extra? How you doing, man?
Chilling, guys. Just enjoying the evening. How about you guys?
Chilling. Yeah, just got home from work, so just wrapping up this space and going to enjoy some time with the family as well.
Nice. Yeah, I've been enjoying listening, and I'm excited to hear some of this moon math too.
Yeah, we'll run through it. We'll probably even use some of the data just off of what Blackthorn is asking for right now. I know what he's producing. If we use any of the data, it's going to create some crazy numbers, which will be fun, right? So,
by the way, I mean he's not too far off from where my mindset is with the top of ETH. So, I mean, this will be exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting when you run these moon math numbers. Like the numbers that we're putting in are really not unrealistic. They're actually really realistic numbers, and they're very, in my opinion, modest, to be honest, because we're using real data. We're using past history of pTGC and UFO, and then creating pretty modest X's on PulseChain. But by using the X multiplier system, it makes it so easy for pTGC and UFO to hit crazy numbers. This is one reason why we don't veer away from getting as much liquidity in our system as possible. One, because it's value generation for our system, and it's going to be a ton of value in the future for our holders. But I don't think we're going to have a lack of X's here on chain by being bonded with so many assets that I believe are undervalued right now. And we'll kind of run through that stuff.
Okay, Zen. So, currently in reserve right now is $433,650,000 worth of ETH. ETH is $2,536. Do you want to increase the value of ETH? We can only do a 2x because the max you can do on Pampy is $1 billion in reserve.
Really? I think you're probably pulling the left toggle. There should be a right toggle as well.
There
where
you go.
Can pull the price at ETH.
Okay. You're right.
And you should be able to toggle that over the 15K.
15. Whoa. Okay. 15.
It's going to hit some crazy numbers.
This is going to be probably numbers we've never seen before. So that would, and if you do an even split and you're not doing you're not including any sell pressure, I'm not factoring that in. That would be a 640. Wait, what is that? An X's. So I think this changed.
Going off of memory, I think you can use you can consider a portion of the SAC funds being used. I don't know if there's a toggle for that. So right now it might be being used as we are assuming that 100% of that value will be used. But I don't even like doing that, right? I like to even say okay, let's say ETH gets to a $15,000 ETH, but only 25% of the SAC funds get used.
Yep. So I was just going to say, I completely agree.
Yeah, I like to use modest numbers, because then we have that reserve for next cycle and so on and so forth. It doesn't need to be used all right away. Is there a toggle for that? I'm going off of memory, Banana. Sorry.
No, I'm not seeing one.
Okay. Huh.
And it's showing me 643 million in the pulse block. And I don't think that's correct. Let me.
So I know the right block is price of ETH. What toggle? What's the left toggle again? The first one you're removing?
The reserve. Oh, okay, I know what it's doing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's quantity. Yeah.
I'm tracking.
You can adjust that. Yeah, you can adjust that.
Okay, I know what we're doing. I was mixed up. I hadn't hit calculate yet. So let me go set this back to 15. Ethereum at 15, and I did input some sell pressure, 15% of each token, and we're doing an even split, Hex, Pulse, PulseX, and Inc. And that would put the reserve, by the way, at $2.6 billion. Now we're going to see the price impact on Pulse. Bring that look into PTGC, and we'll see the impact on PTGC. So the impact on Pulse would be a 99,915x. It would be a $2.55 Pulse, by the way. Let's bring that over to look into. Let's keep PTGC at a 2x factor, meaning PTGC is going to move up against Pulse.
Where did you drag the left toggle to? Did you use 100% of that reserve? Because let's use 25% of that reserve.
Oh, okay.
And then calculate.
All right.
Because I knew the numbers would be insane, and which obviously it is possible that we could use 100% of that reserve, but I just the numbers were going to be astronomical.
So that would be 108 million because we started at 433. So we're going to make it 25% of that. So that's about 108. We're going to do the same calculation. We get it on about 100. We'll do 116. $15,000 Ethereum. Let's get that down a little bit and adjust it the other direction. Okay. That'd still be it.
Go ahead and hit calculate.
I'm waiting for it. Now we're at a 90. That is not possible. That is not possible because it's saying 92,000x. Let me go back and try it. We got back and try it again. Just give me a second. I'm gonna
the numbers will still be really high. Just so
yeah.
The numbers will still be crazy.
Okay, so I refresh my screen. We'll go down to $107 million in reserve. $15,000 Ethereum. Calculate. It's calculating 129,000x on Pulse. A $3. It actually gave me more. $3.29. I must be doing something wrong. How's that possible? What did I say before?
Did you split it? Did you split it?
Oh, I bet I didn't split it. No, it's on even split.
Okay, so you should be ending up with more X's with all the other tickers too, right?
Yep. Yeah, Hexwood 596,000, Inc 398,000. Let's just put. You want to just put 50,000 or 25,000 X's for Pulse. That would probably get us close.
Yeah, I think what Pampy really shows is if ETH is successful, right? If ETH goes to $15,000 and if the sacrifice funds get used, even a portion, 25% of them get used to help PulseChain. PulseChain's X's are massive.
Yeah. So here's the X's, and we're gonna just put in a 2x factor.
PLS is real quick. PulseChain is a blockchain that literally has the potential to do as much X's as like the next biggest meme token from the bottom.
Whoa.
With funds that we have available. And the crazy part is it's a full-blown blockchain, and it has the potential to do that. Will it do that? Will these funds get brought over? Who knows? But even with mediocre amount of funds that just get brought in from natural onboarding, PLS can do crazy amounts of X's. Without even these stack funds. Like, as long as our community just stops losing our own value to scams and stuff like that, and you take all the natural onboarding that we've been doing for the 4 years and just actually keep that in-house instead of lose it, like the X's could start flowing in really nicely.
Okay.
Even just like a 3-cent pulse is like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? So anything higher is like, oh man.
Yep. And PTGC, by the way, has done about a 14x against Pulse in the last year. And we're going to put in a very modest 2x against Pulse. Pulse does a 25,000x. That gives us
I think even a 2x is too modest, to be honest. The numbers that I've ran with no additional buy pressure to pTGC and UFO, or let's say just pTGC. Let's say it's just a net even amount of buyers and sellers, human interaction, with just the mechanical buy and burns built into the system, with the amount of volume that we've had on a average for the last year, we've naturally produced a 4x every single year just mechanically over Pulse. This doesn't even include any additional humans coming in, which humans have. That's why we've done more. You get what I'm saying? Like, humans do come with all of this. So it's kind of crazy to think that they won't. Obviously, there's a chance that we have more sellers than buyers, which then would eat up that 4x. But when value flows into markets, it is a good assumption that with products that have product market fit and, you know, good sustainability and stuff like this, stuff pTGC and UFO and the assets we're connected to have, it is fair to assume that value will make its way to these assets. Okay. I think since August 26th, we've done a 10x. I think that's a fair number to use.
A 10x?
pTGC against PulseChain.
Okay. Let's hold on to your hats.
I know it gets crazy. That's what I keep telling people. Like, with a remotely successful PulseChain, the numbers become somewhat almost unbelievable. And I don't even care about the X's. What the numbers that I care more about is the value generation of pTGC and UFO become unbelievable, because they're a decentralized entity on chain, and they start generating more revenue than some of the largest companies that exist.
And by value generation, you're talking about the yield from reflections and staking and LP rewards, right?
That also, I put it all into one category as value generation. It's what we generate off of buys and sells of both humans and arbitrage bots. So this includes the DAO. This includes the auto buy and burn. This includes the auto LP. This includes APY for holders and stakers. That's what I include as value generation.
Okay, so a 10x on pTGC against the layer one. Layer one does 25,000x. That'd be a $70 pTGC, 250,000x potential. $69, a $70 pTGC. Well, it would break my calculator. That's why I'm a huge advocate of, if somebody doesn't have exposure to this asset, get $1 million. Just get $1 million. You know, how about $70 million at the top?
Yeah.
So what would UFO be?
Let's do it.
UFO, the X multiplier works the same way for any asset. What you're assuming is what PulseChain does. So in this example, PulseChain, what was it, a 25,000x you plugged in there?
Yes.
So in this example, UFO would be exposed the same way. It would get that 25x from PulseChain. And then if UFO did a 10x against PulseChain in that time period, it would equal the same amount of X's. But yeah, the price would be different, and you can plug that price in real quick. But yeah, I just wanted to explain that is what we're simulating is you could technically simulate this with any asset. The problem is most assets don't do X's over the blockchain because they don't have sustainability, right? Most stuff on chain doesn't even need to exist. It's just the truth.
Shoot, man. That's exciting. Okay, so a 10x on UFO and a 25,000x on PulseChain would be a $4.50 UFO. Just to think that that's even a possibility is just beyond any of my non-expectations. I mean, just, man. I'm losing it over here, Zan. Reel me in.
Yeah, for real. Let's come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, plug in 100x pulse chain. Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be very, very happy with 100x pulse chain. The truth is 100x pulse chain takes like absolutely like very little value flowing into the chain to make this happen. I personally believe our community could even do this. The pulse chain community, like I put myself in that category. The pulse chain community could do this with even richer, just by being very passionate about our ecosystem, by educating our community on not losing our value to scams and other things anymore. Like that would be a huge step in the right direction. And I plug that in real quick.
Okay.
Banana.
I'm gonna make some commentary real quick. That is my go-to number. We're gonna put it in 100x on Pulse. But since all this marketing campaign and everything that's going on, I have increased my number. I just haven't done it yet. I'm now thinking 500x minimum. But we're going to do 100x minimum for those that like to see a modest number. So do you want to still do a 10x of pTGC against the Pulse chain?
Yeah, I think that's
1,000x. That's 1,000x. And that would be a 28-cent pTGC. I'm still very happy, Banana.
Yeah. So that's, that's the main point of the X multiplier is a lot of people don't realize how this stuff actually operates and how easy it is to do crazy amounts of X's. Like, I definitely think a lot of people here on PulseChain would be beyond happy with 100x, right? But if you are in the pTGC and UFO systems and we do what we've done in the past, just the 10x over the blockchain, you would be sitting on 1,000x. Right. And that would be in a hyper deflationary asset that's paying you APY the whole way. And once you're up 1,000x, if that's remotely maintained, now you're earning APY on 1,000x what you put in.
Okay. So let's do 100x. I mean, let's do UFO, 10x on UFO, 100x on Pulse chain. That would give us a 1.7 cent UFO, 1,000x. And you guys can do this calculation at home, by the way. Whatever you think UFO can do against the L1, 10 in this example, 100x on the L1, 10 times 100 is 1,000. Multiply that times the current price, and there's your final price.
Yeah, and to kind of relate this all back and why I really care about the appreciation of the assets we're connected to, along with our assets. If you take what our liquidity is today, right, we have roughly $12 million between pTGC and UFO in liquidity. If PulseChain in general, right, if our index in general, 100x's, well, just a 10x would put our liquidity at $120 million. So that would put our liquidity at $1,200,000,000. I don't know of any on-chain product that has liquidity like that, to be honest. I don't even think it exists. And that's only 100x to PulseChain. And the amount of value a market maker would have to move to fix our pairs at that price would be 100 times what it is today. And that's considering Pulse, pTGC, and UFO doing no X's against the blockchain. If you consider what we just talked about, a 10x, X's against the blockchain don't move the liquidity up evenly. I think it's roughly 40%. So, but still, that would be another 40% on top of that. Or, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 40% more than 1,200,000,000, right? Like we're now sitting at, 1,700,000,000 or something like that, right?
Yeah. Okay. There are two other calculators. I want to run through each of them. Does anybody have any comments before we move on? Let's do
just that I am just as happy with a cent UFO as the $4 one, but continue.
I'm right there with you, dude. I'm not even kidding. That's just blows my mind. So let's do a reflections calculator. Let's do pTGC. Let's put in. What do you want to put in? If you want me to put in particular numbers, let me know. I was just going to put in a billion. billion tokens. Okay. Let's do 100 million because we're in PTDC. I was thinking UFO. 100 million PTDC tokens. We'll go into experimental mode. The people on YouTube can see this. Evening Lemonade. What kind of volume do you want to put into the calculator? I mean, do you want to get crazy bullish like we did on the moon math, or do you want to keep it simple?
So let's do it. It's a bull run.
Is 10 million? Is 10 million enough?
So if you take today's volume, right, like the last couple of days, roughly $100,000.
Yep.
If you just 100x our liquidity, this doesn't even include increasing of volume due to obviously the price has to get there by new users coming in. So naturally, this should increase in multiples, and it has increased in multiples. It's not an even trend, but even if you just 100x our volume of today, that puts us at 10 million in volume pretty much every single day.
Okay.
That's just today. That's the all-time lows of PulseChain's volume. If you take the average of the last 6 months, we would be around $30 million a day in average volume.
Let's do 25. I think we need to do 25 based on that. And you guys, you can do your own calculations. This is based on 100 million tokens. So just do factors of 10 for your own bags. So this is $25 million volume every day. That would garner a $100 million bag. His daily yield would be 300,000 tokens or $84. And that's in reflections only, doesn't count any staking or locking rewards. Monthly,
So
2,500.
real quick for everyone listening, if you're staked and locked, what we've found in the past is you earn roughly 200% more.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much multiply that by 3 is what I'm getting at.
Yes. And I want to do the locking calculator next. Oh, no, let's do UFO. Because UFO is different, right? Because you have UFO tokens that are liquid and you have tokens that are in LP that aren't earning reflections. So UFO always looks different. So I want to do 1 billion tokens for UFO. Make sure this is 1 billion. Okay, billion.
Real quick, could you go back to, because I feel like looking at APY on you did the like daily basis. It told you what the yearly was, right? In value.
Yes.
You see,
Give me a second. You wanted to see what the
annual percentage yield, and annual means yearly. So
it's not showing me.
You're on the reflection calculator, right?
Yes, which has been modified in the last 2 weeks. It's not. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Experimental APY. It's showing the 24-hour APY, 109%. It doesn't show the annual APY anymore.
What's it saying? 109%?
Yes.
I would assume that's, I assume that's just APY in general.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That's based on 24 hours of volume.
Yeah, but you expanded out a year. So technically what I think that means, I'm not looking at that, is if you're staked and locked, you should be earning roughly 300% APY. But I think something's up with it. I'd have to look at it.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of difficult when you're on a phone not actually looking at it. So we'll move on to UFO, and we'll put 1 billion in here, 1 billion tokens. So this is going to simulate what a 1 billion tokens sitting liquid, not LP'd, in someone's wallet would earn in reflections.
So real quick, before you did 100 million with pTGC,
yes,
do 300 million with UFO, because that will equal roughly the same amount of supply.
Okay.
Because
yes.
UFO has roughly 3 times the amount of supply of pTGC, so it creates like a relatively similar
yes.
experience.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yes, that's a very good recommendation. Okay, let me double check and make sure I got 300 million, because it doesn't show you commas, right? So the commas are useful. We have 300 million in this field. We're going to use $25 million in volume. Again, the APY would be 577%. $80 per day, 4.75 million UFO coming into that wallet every single day.
Do you want to know why it's more?
It's because a lot of the UFO is in LP.
No. There's only 20% of UFO, I believe, even liquid right now. So it's a lot scarcer than I think a lot of people realize.
Yes.
That means 80% of it's held, to where 95% of PTGC is held. And I think it's only like 65% of it is staked and locked. So that's not the reason why you're earning more APY.
It's okay. So how much is being held in wallets? You said 20%?
No, 80% of UFO is held in wallets, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so why
20% is in LP.
All right. So why is the APY so high?
It's because you can get like 5 times more of the supply for the amount of value injected because of the price.
There you go. Okay. All right. That makes
And your
makes
APY
sense.
compared, since you created even volume amounts between the two assets, what you're earning off of is your percentage of supply. So with UFO, if it's 5 times cheaper at the moment, roughly, you'll get 5 times the amount of the supply for the same price, which means you're technically earning 5 times more on the 1%, but then you have to factor in PTGC, you're earning on 1% for holding, 1% on staking, which you're getting a lot larger of a share for staking your PTGC because only 65% of people are staked.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not sharing with a lot there. And then you have the potential to earn more with locking, right? So that's why you're at roughly 300% in PTGC if you're staked and locked. But if you're with UFO, you're at 500% because technically it's 5 times cheaper at the moment, and you are creating a simulation of the exact amount of volume. That doesn't mean that they are going to have the same amount of volume, right? PTGC could have more volume, which could equal a higher APY, or UFO could have more volume, which could equal a higher APY. The volume is really what's going to indicate that which one pays the better APY. But due to UFO being cheaper, it does create a different opportunity to take advantage of. That doesn't mean UFO is going to do more X's. PTGC could easily do more X's because it has less liquidity, and UFO is buying and burning the heck out of it, right?
Yeah.
PTGC is not buying and burning the heck out of UFO. There's so many variables to think about. Have no idea what the outcome will be. I'm super excited to see, but I think it's important to show people, even though with PTGC, you're earning on 2% of every transaction, and there's barely any people staking in comparison to holding. Why are you still earning a higher APY with UFO when they have the same volume? It's because APY is based on your percentage of holdings, and you can hold more percentage with UFO because it's cheaper. Is how it works.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah, I've been talking to people that aren't in the public a lot. It's very quiet, very intelligent, very studied, have been studying up on UFO recently, and are very bullish about what's to come for UFO. Can't see anything.
Yeah, UFO is very heavily bonded with Richard's tickers. And when they wake up, you've seen UFO really wake up and generate tons of volume from very little human interaction, but a lot of that volume is generated from the web. But when the RH tickers go down, since it's so heavily bonded with them, it works the same way. It really bogged the system down, which created these lows. I think it could wake up out of nowhere.
Between PTGC and UFO, and this is just my anecdotal observation, it seems to me like when we have a pump, UFO is the one that just seems to come out the gates swinging, and PTGC will have its own little pump, but not as exaggerated. I might be wrong.
They were pretty similar the last go. They were pretty similar. I am interested to see what happens this time. Obviously, UFO will be pumping pTGC itself by what it creates. That's what it was really designed to do with its liquidity web, not only support itself, but also support making pTGC very scarce using the community's liquidity providing. So the stronger UFO goes, the stronger it makes pTGC. It's very like a very symbiotic relationship in my opinion.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll see. I like pointing out where I see opportunity, but that doesn't mean it's going to do better than the other, right? But sure. I think it's important to showcase those opportunities. If you are an APY person and you believe they'll have the same amount of volume, right now there is opportunity with UFO's price being cheaper. Now, take in mind, if UFO's price starts catching up with pTGC's price, right, that ratio, how can I say this? Right now, it's a 1 to 5 ratio, pretty much. But if that ratio becomes 3 to 5, well, for people coming in at 3 to 5, it won't be as good of a deal if the volume is good. Where the opportunity is right now is the fact that you can get 5 times the amount of supply for the same amount of value, assuming they have the same volume. Again, they could not have the same volume. pTGC definitely has more natural human interaction because it's the mothership. This has more people involved with it, more people talking about it. So when it comes to human interaction volume, pTGC has definitely shown to be stronger, but anything could change in the future. Also, mechanical volume, UFO was stronger last run in the mechanical volume side, but again, that could be different this next time depending on the liquidity web. They are very similar in liquidity webs, but also a little different as well.
Right. Let's do a locking calculator calculation too. But before we move on to that, just so you guys know, you can buy a dolphin position in pTGC for about $7,000 right now. It's probably a little bit more actually. $7,000 for a dolphin in pTGC, but a dolphin in UFO is $1,400. That's what we're talking about. You can get more of the supply of UFO than you can pTGC dollar for dollar. Okay, let's do a lock calculator. This is my favorite. So we emergency unlocked an average of 400 million tokens last year. Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. 400 million tokens were unlocked in any given 30-day period last year. So if you had 100 million tokens, and what this calculator is going to do is going to forecast at a future price. Let's just go for $1 since we were talking so moony just a little bit ago. We're going to say, okay, if I have 100 million tokens locked up, and in this 30-day period, we did indeed unlock 400 million tokens. We don't know. It's human dependent. And pTGC is now, each one is worth $1 million, worth $1. And the contract doesn't care how many dollars it's sending to my wallet. It's just going to send tokens to my wallet for forfeited tokens from people that early end locked. And let's say I'm in 10-year locks. That would be $85,000, Zen, for locking up 100 million tokens with pTGC at $1.
Yeah, I think this is obviously gotten from Richard, right? The ability to lock your assets up for a long time and keeping your hands off of it is a very unique design that, if the product is successful long term, could save tons of people, right? Obviously, if the product doesn't succeed long term, it kind of locked people out of gains in short periods of time. This is kind of where Hex is right now. I personally believe with the new inflation cuts on Hex, I do think Hex is going to have a massive next run now that they've gotten some supply control going on, and the people who have the big locks aren't able to just create these rolling locks constantly and sell the APY. I think it's very unique. I think if this was, which there was locking ability with Bitcoin, but there was no incentives for it. So a lot of people didn't do it. And I think the fact that we do have things built into pTGC where there is financial incentives for locking up your assets for long-term, short-term, whatever, could possibly save a lot of people from their worst enemy themselves, right? And you don't have to go crazy, because if this product is successful, just locking out a little amount long-term could be very, very rewarding. I think, Banana, you did your ladders in certain ways. The cool thing about pTGC being multiple years after Hex is we've actually been able to witness what styles of locking have worked really well for people, with ladders and multiple locks of the same length, what different quantities. So even if you have to tap into a lock early, you don't have to nuke your other locks. There is a lot of different strategies you can do with ladders, and then also just multiple locks to make it to where you don't have to harm some to get at others.
Right.
So definitely before you lock, there isn't a rush, but spend some time and really think of an awesome strategy to do so. But I do think pTGC and UFO have the potential to do well long term. And I've already firsthand witnessed plenty of people sell their assets way too early. And not to say it's not great to change your life in real life, right? That's why a lot of people are here. But I do think this product is, I think it does have the ability to be very successful multi-cycle. And I hope that everyone's along for the ride that is here right now, even with a portion of their portfolio. So definitely consider it, look into it. You are able to access your APY at any point. So your APY is not locked up in the system. This was designed based on the friend who got me into Hex. He had a lot of his Hex locked, and I could tell that he wished he could access some of it, but was unable to. And I built pTGC in the design of where you could technically live off of the APY if you had a big enough bag without actually compromising your stakes or locks or tapping into them. So it's a unique design, and you're not actually completely locked out of all your capital, because as the system generates revenue, you can actually tap into your APY at any point. So
right. I'll add a couple little nuggets about locking since we're on the topic, and that is, you might want to refrain from locking up one enormous bag for a long period of time. You might want to break it up into smaller bags, depending on your risk tolerance. And then if you lock one day into the next higher tier, you're going to earn from that tier. So you can lock for 3,650 days, or you can lock or you can lock for 9 years times 365 days plus 1, and you'll earn 100%. You'll be in the 10-year category. And like Zen was saying, what I did is I did locking ladders. So I have annual ladders that are going to mature, annual locks that are going to mature every year. And then I have also just some extra, if you will, 10-year locks, because I want to garner the rewards from people that are going to emergency end lock, we presume, going up into the cycle. And I think people will emergency end lock, but going up into the cycle, but I don't know that it would. I'm curious. I hesitate to think that it's going to be more than we've already seen. I'm just not sure about that. Could be.
You have to realize that as it becomes more sustainable, or if it becomes more sustainable, the trust factor within the code, I think, will become stronger, which will help people stay their length of their locks better. Also, as tokens become more expensive, you will probably have people who come in later on. If this thing does last as long as PulseChain, which it will, but if it has good momentum as long as PulseChain, let's say 5 years from now. Well, locking will still be around 5 years from now. People can still come in and lock, but how much pTGC will that user be locking up? Well, let's say PulseChain is successful. Let's say pTGC hits $1 with a successful PulseChain. That's not really out of the question because of the X multiplier, as we were discussing earlier. Well, then for those users, let's say that user comes in with $500,000. Well, that user will only have 500K of pTGC, and then let's say he locks that up, and then he early end locks that. Well, what people are earning today is way more than that quantity of token wise, because the tokens are worth way less. And that's why I do think a lot of people have been compounding their pTGC and UFO assets, staking with the reflections, everything, because they believe these assets are technically worth more than they are priced right now. Right?
Yep. Somebody dropped something into the Jumbotron from Richard Hart. Is this a new post? It is. Posted.
I shared it.
Do you want to explain it? You want to read through it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. 7 minutes ago. Good job, man. Bitcoin was a penny. Now it's $100,000. This is Richard Hart. Ethereum was 31 cents. Now it's $2,500. If you're reading this, there's a good chance that a coin you like is as good or better than they are. So why shouldn't it be wildly valuable too? The software is better than it's ever been. It just needs eyes. That's it. Good post. Bullish. Very bullish. It needs eyeballs. So he's saying
that's a super bullish tweet.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one thing where I think there's so much opportunity being built here on PulseChain. The ability to have this X multiplier being built on a chain that can literally do as many X's as a meme token is insane, right? That we have plenty of X's that we're doing and can do on our own. Let's say 10X, 100X, right? Like if we are multi-cycle, like we can do a lot of X's over this chain. We've already done a lot of X's over this chain. But when you factor in multiplying that by the chain being remotely successful, we were going over this earlier. Like even the modest numbers become absolutely crazy. Like, 100X on PulseChain and a 10X on pTGC is very modest in my opinion. I think a lot of people thought PulseChain was going to do more than that. And keep in mind, 100X from here is roughly only a 25X from Sacred. A lot of people thought 25X from Sacred was nothing. That's PulseChain 100X from these levels today. Let's say pTGC just does that 10X. Well, that's 1,000X for pTGC and UFO holders. And that's roughly a 400X to the liquidity web. That's pretty much a 400X increase to our volume mechanically, because now market makers need to move 400 times the amount of value to fixed pairs. So our value generation should increase, if not evenly. I personally think it will increase more because in the past, every time PulseChain has increased multiples, our volume has actually increased more multiples, just because that's how markets work. Is because PLS is going up in price, that means new users are coming in. That means activity on, so on and so forth. Market makers need to move more money. There's all these compounding things kind of building off of each other. And yeah, and that's only 100X, right? But again, look what that can do for an asset on it. A 400X to our price now, real quick. Not even our price. Let's do market cap. 400 times, where are we at? 90 mil. This is pTGC. We can do UFO as well. So that puts us at 36 billion market cap. And we could run over it if anyone has a computer in front of them. We could go into CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap or whatever and see where that would rank us to date. Obviously, later on, other assets will be up as well. So most likely, all those will also be up because value flowed into the markets. So you need to multiply those up a little bit as well. But where I'm getting at with this, I don't need to get into the nitty gritty that I run through in my head off these spaces. very easily with a remotely successful PulseChain, pTGC, and UFO can have some of the biggest on-chain liquidity that exists in crypto, some of the largest price appreciations that's ever existed in crypto, and then also they would be a decentralized system that generates revenue that is, if not larger, up there with some of the biggest crypto companies in the world, but fully decentralized and automated with no overhead. And then on top of that, our market cap would probably at least get us to the top 50 of crypto tokens that exist on these websites. Will they rank us at that point? Who knows, right? They might still hate Richard and find out we're on PulseChain and give us the shun just like they gave him. But I do think we have a better chance to be ranked on these sites because we're not playing market cap games by holding 90% of the supply and stuff like that. So who knows, right? We could be a form of a Trojan horse for the whole PulseChain ecosystem, because when people enter into our system, they're in turn putting that PLS into our liquidity pools. And for the most part, our liquidity pools are burnt and locked in pTGC. UFO, community held, but they're highly incentivized, especially at that point. If they're still holding their early UFO shares, they're most likely not leaving them. They're most likely just living off of that APY that they're receiving in PLS, not even touching their UFO shares.
I have CoinGecko pulled up. What market cap did you suggest? Wasn't it like a 60?
If we 400x from here, it would put us at 36 billion.
That would put us at number 8 on CoinGecko, above Tron, right between Tron and USDC.
Yeah, you have to take in mind if we hit these numbers, crypto in general has grown. So, like maybe for an example, where is 5 billion at?
5 billion is, let me see, I got to scroll down.
You have to also consider that the 5 billion assets
might 30.
be up 7x, right? Which,
yes, true.
You need to kind of include all this stuff.
5 billion is Polkadot at number 33.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I'm saying is I think top 50 is very easily achievable with a remotely successful PulseChain. And in that illustration we just created was, a 400x, which would be 100x to PulseChain and a 4x to pTGC over PulseChain. And we could do UFOs too, but UFOs is with the same numbers. Let's do the same numbers for fun. It's roughly at 18 million market cap times 400. That puts it at a $7.2 billion market cap.
I would put it at number 21, just above Shiba Inu.
Yeah, if those assets didn't go up, if those assets went up, I definitely think in the top 100 is possible for UFO as well.
I like what Crypto Stylist said in the chat. She says pTGC is the Berkshire Hathaway of PulseChain.
You're going to have to explain that reference to me.
Berkshire Hathaway is what's his name? The multi-billionaire old gentleman that still lives in a modest Warren Buffett. Yeah. Still flies coach and lives in a middle-class house, but I was thinking, I got to look this up. I got to make the comparison myself. I like the thought because the Berkshire Hathaway has a very good name in my community, and I think amongst everybody. So, but who can come up and talk about the similarities? Does anybody have any ideas?
Just by what you described, I think the overhead cost of the pTGC asset will really let the system shine over time. It sounds like what you're just describing has very little overhead costs. A lot of the tokens that exist currently in the top 100 have no value generation going on unless it comes from selling the asset itself onto the market to pay for marketing and stuff like that. This would be like a meme token, right? you have to ask yourself, where are they going to generate revenue from? A lot of times it is from bigger players selling the asset itself down. And then the other one is, okay, utility-based protocols, which usually have companies behind them. And then you have to ask yourself, what is the overhead cost of that company? And what are they generating in revenue yearly? If they're generating $1 million yearly and their overhead cost is $900,000, okay, they have $100,000 to maybe bring back into the protocol. Well, with our system, since it's automated and decentralized, and it's just running on chain, it's just code running on chain. If our system generates, and the numbers get crazy, right? Like if PulseChain is remotely successful, our system between pTGC and UFO bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars is actually in the cards. It would go 100% back to APY to the holders, buy and burns, marketing, buying LPs, etc. 100% of the value going back into this ecosystem because there's no overhead costs. What that equals long term, I think will be very, very successful, and I think Richard operates very similarly as far as his products. I think his products and what he builds has very little overhead costs, and I think a lot of the value that they generate actually go 100%, if not 100%, a large amount back into the tokens, and that's going to equal massive price appreciation over the long term for his assets as well. Great for us. We're heavily bonded to him, right? We want major success to anything we're bonded to. So anything that we're connected to that goes up massively equals more massive gains for our ecosystem and more value generation for our ecosystem.
Yeah.
Being frugal is good.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to teach a daughter that recently.
Welders aren't frugal.
What aren't frugal?
Welders.
Oh, okay. I'm making the connection there. That's true, man. With this one. Oh. Well, what else, man?
Outside of the tech, because the tech is really cool, the mind share that pTGC and UFO, the potential they have to grab just the casual crypto meme coin trader, they're going to look at everything. It's going to match all their metrics of visuals to get them to look into stuff. And then once they do, I mean, it's like, they stumbled upon literal alien technology, and it keeps them there. That's going to be a big thing for people in audience like 18 through, 30. Like they're very in a meme coin mindset, and then, shovel it into Bitcoin, if anything, if not losing it all. So the fact that, pTGC is going to have, and UFO are going to have a chance to, kind of grab that attention from, the people who don't really necessarily go out and look for the tech, but when it captures their visuals, they stumble upon the tech. It's going to be interesting to see the accumulation tactics that they have, because I do think unit bias is a real thing. So it's going to be interesting to see the fair evaluation in a bull market.
Yeah, I agree. I think when value really starts flowing in a bull market, I don't think a lot of people are going to really sit down and study the tech that's actually behind it. I think they're going to look at the mascots of both pTGC and UFO, and see, hopefully, a very amplified chart with a lot of green candles. Like we were talking about earlier, we're operating off of an X multiplier. I've never heard one person in every blockchain that I've been on and communities I've talked to talk about these kind of things before. I don't even think most people are going to know that the reason we're doing so many X's is because of an X multiplier. I never heard anyone before I brought it up talk about the reason why Hex did the X's it did wasn't solely because of Hex's price appreciation, but it was also operating off an X multiplier of ETH going up at the same time. No one knew this, but they still bought into it because of the green candles, right? So we right now in this space, we've broken everything down to the nitty gritty because we have so much time on our hands and we're sitting here just studying everything back and forth. We've been here a whole bear market or two. bear market, bull market. We've been here multiple years, multiple cycles. But new people coming in, they don't have all that time. They're going to see a pumping chart and a fun meme and a strong community, and they'll most likely get in just for those reasons. I agree with
you. Does anyone else care to come up and ask a question or make a point?
Well, I'll say there's no reason to not be bullish. I mean, I think this ecosystem, it's suffered enough. I think, being in a new EVM chain, being in its first whatever kind of weird, funky cycle this has been, because it definitely hasn't been like the rest of the prior cycles. You could blame it on, conspiracy of maybe it was intentional. Maybe that's just, not where TradFi wanted to park their capital. They wanted to be more in quote unquote blue chip stuff. And they, made the path for Bitcoin relatively easy and sped it up and really started to use it as, not like a safe risk on asset, and just pumped it, for 3 years straight now. And so I think we could see a trickle down effect where, things like PulseChain, things like pTGC and UFO, they inherit a lot of capital, because once people do have abundance, they like to spread it out, but they like to do it, relatively smartly too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of am wondering what will, and this will not be just this cycle, this is a multi-cycle thing, but if pTGC over time, as far as being like the decentralized entity, if it can prove to be more sustainable, because people, I do think as PulseChain grows, people will really start to dive into the economics and the math behind this protocol, studying the volume and the value generation that it produces, and that going back into the underlying value, what that equals for price appreciation and sustainability through multiple cycles. And if those numbers all check out to what I believe they will, if PulseChain becomes remotely successful, right? That is, in my opinion, one of the biggest risk factors in pTGC and UFO is, we are on a riskier chain, but with risk comes reward. But as adoption comes to this chain, as people find out about it, as marketing starts, mathematically, that's what everyone likes to lean on with Bitcoin. But when you mathematically break it down, what if there is better store of values out there with more sustainability, even if they're smaller? And how do people use this product in the future compared to what they're using it for today? Right? I think a lot of people today are using PulseChain and pTGC and UFO to make X's, and I do think a portion of those X's obviously will go to changing their life in real life. But there is a tipping point to where people need to take money that they've made in real life, and they actually are bringing it here to crypto to actually store value, to hedge themselves against the inflation and the lack of gains in most stock accounts, etc. And I'm very excited to see when that threshold is with pTGC, or if we can get this asset to that caliber, to where it proves to be that type of asset, because that's what it's been designed to do. That's what it was built for, to be a place to where people could store value, get price appreciation, a fair yield, right? A yield that's actually justified by value generation, not by inflation. And it's going to take time, right? Like you can't, we're 2 years in and people are still studying this thing and deciding if they could trust it with their wealth and stuff. And you do have to get a better distributed supply over time and stuff like that. PulseChain needs to grow. There's all these things, but I am excited to see how that evolves over time, because you do look at like money math, and there is ways to amplify the things that make money math better. And I do think pTGC taps into a lot of those ideas, and UFO. And time will tell, right? That's why we're all here. It's like a revolution, and we don't know the outcome yet.
Yep. I mean, being early to stuff, it can seem, a bit uncertain and, things like that. But I'm after learning about pTGC and UFO, like I'm certainly more convicted than I was just holding a smaller bag, months before. Definitely woke me up to the idea that they definitely could be a very lucrative play, leverage play on the core coins as well. And also keeping it, long term is definitely going to be, ideal as well, because I'm a person who, no matter what, I like moon bags. I like holding on to stuff. I'm a 555er, stuff like that. Like I totally believe in staking. And I do think that people do kick themselves. If you get into something valuable and you let time defeat you, you're just going to, you're going to keep living through that. Oh, I should have did this, or, just trying to avoid that, right? Like, what the right decision is, you know what you can afford to do, what you can not afford to do, and just, you got to play it smart.
Yeah, you never know the outcomes of everything. And definitely, I think you have to play situations like this. We are in a really risky asset class. You want to play it to where you're right either way, right? It is important to take profits and actually change your life in real life. But I do think with the assets that could be the golden gooses, and I think those assets are starting to prove themselves 2 years in the Pulse chain. It's also important to realize, like, sooner or later there will be those assets that last multi-cycle, like we believe Hex is, like I believe PulseChain is, like I believe PulseX is. I think all these assets are going to fall into this category, hopefully. Definitely, I think it's good that people change their life in real life, but I also have seen multiple people who have taken massive profits on pTGC and UFO and didn't leave moon bags, because I've watched more wallets than probably people realize, and the price just left without them. And it was good. They changed their life in real life, but I definitely think they could have played it a little differently, to where they could have been right if they're right and right if they're wrong, right? Like, hey, I took half profits and I left a moon bag of half, or 75% profits, and then I did a locking ladder with the last 25%. So if this thing actually becomes what it could be mechanically, I'm still taken care of off of it forever, right? I think you can play things like
that. Then we are coming up on 2 hours.
Oh, I'm ready to go if you guys are. I had a pretty long day.
Yeah, I'll let you guys go. Had a pretty long day myself. You guys have a good evening, and let's just stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, extra. I wanted to say you came in a couple times now and you did that space with me. I just want to say thank you for showing the support and being part of the community and coming up here and chatting with us too, because it does mean a lot when we do find people who like to have the conversation up here with us as well. Because then it's not just me and Banana talking. Not that I don't love just chatting with Banana, but it's a little bit more fun, I think, for our community as well when we have other people willing to chat as well. So thank you for participating.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all, man. I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing, putting in. It takes a lot to put out as much content as you are. And, it looks like it's leading in a good direction. So I'm glad to jump on the train.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I think I'm speaking for both me and Banana, but it's been nice having you.
Yes, for sure. I hope you enjoyed the moon math too. I know you did.
Oh, yeah, you know it. All right, guys. You have a good one, man.
Okay.
Or you guys have a good one. See ya.
We'll see you later, Zen. See you, everybody. There we go. Stream is over. Wow. That was some heavy. I don't think I've ever seen numbers like that for pTGC projected. Yeah, see you, McGee. Wow. I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. All right, guys. Speaking of night, have a good one. Hopefully we'll have some great news tomorrow. We'll see. Yo. Adios.